My colleague Nompu Siziba spoke to the Kumba Iron Ore CEO, and he was very, very happy, I'm sure. Themba Mkhwanazi, she started by asking him the factors behind these good results and this dividend.
A large component of that, whilst prices have helped, has actually been what's within our control, and that's largely the improvements with regards to productivity, the improvements as well with regards to how we're managing our costs.
Shareholders seem to be over the moon that you're awarding them a dividend for the first time in a number of years, but you have warned that you may have to revisit the dividend policy every 6 months or so. Just explain why.
So what we've said, I mean, since we had suspended the dividend in, I think, 2015, what we had said was that even at the end of 2016, we had said that we need to take a cautious approach, given the fact that we are a single commodity iron ore play, and we're highly susceptible to the volatility in terms of iron price and currency. Now, the good news, though, is that because of the significant improvements we've made in terms of the operational and financial performance, we are able to pay a dividend, and hence the board has taken that decision. What we've said, though, as we always have done, our policy has been to return excess cash to shareholders, but we've always had a discretionary approach so as to ensure that at each and every reporting period, we look at the dynamics in the marketplace. We obviously take cognizance in terms of our capital requirements, and then on that basis as well, also take into account the position that we have, that we want to remain ungeared for the short to medium term. Then we will, the board will make a decision on the dividend.
Now, you've indicated that you're very strong in terms of your net cash position, something in excess of 13 billion rand. Now, apart from the 5.1 billion that's going towards shareholders right now, what do you see that money being directed to, the balance thereof?
In terms of the cash position,
yes, your net cash position.
So clearly, when you look at the dividend at the Kumba level, it's 5.1 billion. At the SIOC level, it's 6.7 billion. The remainder of the cash essentially sits on the balance sheet, and it's the conservativeness that we are saying that then says, well, should, for example, iron ore prices change dramatically to where they are, then at least we have that certain level of buffer. And then, of course, some of the cash balance will obviously go to our current capital expenditure plans.
The price of iron ore peaked at around $90 around February, but that came down to about $63 per metric ton towards the end of June. Now, given that, what's your prognosis for the iron ore sector going forward? And tied in with that, how do you see Chinese demand, where there are varying views about its relative growth strength at the moment?
Despite obviously the moderation in monetary policy in terms of the Chinese government, what we have seen, particularly from a steel mill activity, we've seen some continued robustness. Steel margins are up and steel prices are up, and that's obviously driving demand for iron ore, and in particularly it's driving demand for the higher quality iron ores, of which we are a player of, because the focus is very much on productivity. When we look at where we are to the beginning of this year, we are quite confident that where iron ore prices are, it's more correlated to the fundamentals when you look at supply and demand, when you look at steel mill activity and demand, and when you look at stockpiles at the Chinese port. And what we are saying is that we believe the iron ore price will be at a range of about $55 to $60 a ton. So there's what I would probably say more confidence now in terms of where prices are as opposed to where they were at the beginning of the year, where they shot up to about 90, 94 in the middle of February, which was not sustainable in our view because it was not correlated to the fundamentals.
And then lastly, sir, what are your thoughts around the current regulatory impasse, namely the mining charter?
It's a very, very difficult space to be in for our industry. As we've said before, we are pro-transformation, and our record speaks for itself in terms of what we have done in the past and what we continue to do going forward. We are clearly concerned about the charter. We're concerned about its legality. We're concerned about its practicality in terms of its implementation, given the vagueness of the charter, and also the fact that the charter was put together without the consultation with the stakeholders. So that is why we are very much supportive of the Chamber of Mines process, of which we are a part of, because our industry needs a charter that is pro-investment growth, that is pro-jobs growth, which ultimately is very important for our economy.